Um, this is a hard episode of Dylan Knows to do today. Actually, I think my glasses back on. I'm not quite as good without them on there. Um, this week started off pretty bad. And we will get to a regularly scheduled Dylan Knows after I do this one, but I want to do this one first because I've been sitting on this since the 17th and letting it just go through the system. And I'm ready just to do the hard thing, which I tend to do after I've lost somebody. I've lost my cousin to COVID back in 2020. I eulogized him in an episode of this show. I lost my aunt Patty from cancer. Eulogized her on this show a long time ago. It's been a while since she passed. Lost my stepfather, Roger. Eulogized him as well on this show. So it's a regular routine that I do when someone close to me, family, whatever, passes. It's a eulogy thing. And today's episode won't be that long. I just need to get some stuff out about her and just remembrances about her and explain what was been going on. And then I will shut this episode down and I will start with another episode right after, the usual fun and hilarity that is Dylan Knows. Anyway, my cat, Jinx D Cat, as I used to call her, passed away on her own accord on Tuesday, May 17th. Now, Monday, May 16th, well, she'd been looking ragged for a couple weeks now, and I've always feel guilty about maybe I should have taken her to the vet to get her checked out, but it just seemed she was more lethargic than normal. She hadn't been eating as much, so she was losing a lot of fat, and she was becoming skin and bones. She wasn't drinking that much water, but she still was. I could still see bits of the food were gone. I could see the water. I had to change it periodically. It's just she was very lethargic. And sometime last week, she went through a period of time where she had a bunch of sneezes, which usually doesn't really mean or say anything that there's anything wrong with her. But I found it quite odd. She was sneezing a lot. But yeah, she was just really, really lethargic. She would stay in one spot for long periods of time and then really barely move around. And that was fine. And then she would do weird things. Like last weekend, she wanted to, after I took my shower, before I took my shower, she was curled up on our bathroom mat, which she's never sat on before. And then after I took my shower, she wanted to jump into the tub. So I put her into the tub because she was having trouble jumping into the tub. And I put her into the tub and she curled up in there for a little while. She curled up on the kids' bathroom rug as well. She didn't want to go into their tub, but she curled up on their rug. She curled up on the 11th step of 15 that I have, just a random step that wasn't to a landing or any important one, just a bizarre, just little step. She just sat there. She sat in her spot on her sofa in our living room with her blanket there for a long time too. And then Monday, she was up on one of the weird steps and the steps that lead down to our basement. And then we knew she was probably not long for this world. Now, we didn't want to put her to sleep. And that would be one of the reasons why I didn't want to take her to the vet, because I knew that they would probably find something wrong with her. And they would say we could, prolong her life maybe for another year or so, but it would not be it would be a half-life or you can put her to sleep. We've had to put our last two cats to sleep, and I didn't want to go through that again. So I was trying desperately, hoping at this point that she would go in her sleep, because it didn't appear to be suffering any pain. She was just lethargic. If she had something wrong with her, she would be walking funny, or she would be meowing maybe a little bit. She would, I've seen it before with the other two cats. When they were getting ready to die, they each had like a cancerous growth on them somewhere at different locations. And they were not the same cats. They showed that they were in pain. And that's when we went to the vets, and they told us that they had to either have surgery that may or may not be successful, or we would have to put them to sleep. In that case, both of those cases, we opted to put him to sleep because we didn't want them to be in pain anymore. And they didn't give a high percentage that they would get back to normal after surgery, because they were older. It would take longer for them to recover also. With Jinx, we wanted to wait and see if she would go on her own, because she wasn't suffering any pain. She was just lethargic. So usually that's a good sign, is that, okay, she's just reaching the end of her life. She just wants to sleep all the time. That's fine. So Monday night, it looked like it was going to be really, really bad. So before we went to bed, everyone went to bed. The kids said their goodbyes to her, thinking that she might go in the night. And Dawn and I said our goodbyes as well. We told her, you can go. We just let go. We're going to be fine. You don't need to take care of us anymore. And then I got up, like I usually do on Tuesday, and she was still. Actually, I had picked her up before I went to bed. I picked her up from the step and put her back on her sofa, so that if she did die, she would die in her spot, and not on a step that she never really stepped on or stayed on for too long. So when I woke up on Tuesday expecting to see her dead body, she was still alive. So what I usually do is I make my lunch and then I look at my phone until about 5:45. Then I wake up my wife. And then I look at my phone some more. Then my daughter comes downstairs, and I look at my phone while she gets her breakfast. And then my wife comes downstairs, and then I get off the phone, and I get up, and I go to work. So normally I do that in the family room, and Jinx sometimes joins me there. Sometimes she would sit in the kitchen where she used to sit also all the time. But in this case, I decided that I would sit with her in case she died, maybe while we were at work. So I sat with her, looking at my phone, petting her, kissing her. She was breathing and she was purring, and she was just sitting there. And then something happened. She arched her head up, and her eyes went really weird, and she was doing this kind of weird, almost like a seizure, had like a sort of seizure thing. And then it stopped, and she went back down and curled up, and she was breathing a lot more ragged. At that moment, it seemed to me that maybe there was something that was wrong with her, and she was in pain, because that look on her face when she had that seizure was not one of comfort or joy, not joy, but comfort, or I'm moving on. It was of pain. So I told Dawn, my wife, about that. And we said, let's take her to the vet and have her put down. She was in pain. We wanted her to go on her own. She didn't want to do that. And that's her prerogative. That was her prerogative. I couldn't stay. I didn't want to stay, I think, is the truth of the matter, because I was there when we put Bonnie down, and it hit me really hard. And to be fair, Dawn was there when we had to put Clyde down, and I wasn't. I was with Noelle. And then when it was Bonnie, it was just me and Bonnie. So when I put her down, Dawn stayed with the kids. Dawn offered to take her to the vet. Now, she had said that if Jinx didn't have this seizure, And she was just lethargic, that she would come home early before Noah would get home and see if Jinx had passed in her sleep again, and that way she could move it out so Noah wouldn't come home and find a dead cat in there and scar him for life. But she didn't need to, so she offered to take Jinx to our vet to have her put down. Now she let the kids, no, I said that's fine. I just had to go because Jinx and I were, of all the three cats, I think Jinx was the one that was the nearest and dearest to me. I loved all my cats, but I inherited Bonnie and Clyde. They were Dawn's to begin with, and I became stepdad, whatever you want to call it. Jinx was my first real, besides the ones I had when I was a kid, and she was always around me. I'll tell you later on about her. She did stuff to me in the winter that made me angry. I helped her acclimate to the house, and I'll get into all that in a little bit. When we eulogize her life, I'm just trying to lay down what actually happened. So I get in my car, say my goodbyes to Jinx first. Got in my car, drove off to work. It's a miracle I got to work safely because I was crying the entire time from home to work, sometimes violently, my eyes closed and bobbing and stuff like that while driving on the highway. And I kept telling myself, you got to keep it together when you're on the highway. You can't cause an accident because of this. We can't have someone else passing away this day, or you killing somebody or damaging property. So you need to keep it together. But it was hard. And I broke down really hard in the car. I got to work. I wasn't my usual jovial self, but hey, no one notices anyway because no one notices me at work anyway. That's a story for a completely different time. And I hadn't said anything about the cat yet on social media or whatever. I just wanted to just be. So luckily I was just going to be working in my area today, that day. And I broke down a couple more times during the early morning part of the workday. Dawn texted me with an interesting story. So after the kids had said goodbye to Jinx, she curled her, got her all wrapped up in her favorite blanket, and I guess put her in a cat carrier we had. I don't know if she did that or just let her be in the back seat because she was not running around the car. Probably put her into a cat carrier just because it's safer, despite the fact that the vet's is only like 2 minutes away from our house. By car. Walking, it's 10, 15 minutes. But I digress. So she said she got to the vet's office and told the vet what the situation was. And they said, okay, we're going to go get Jinx comfortable. And then when we get her comfortable, we'll come get you and you can come say your goodbyes and, watch her, pass away. If you wanted to, they always ask that, do you want to watch when it happens? And of course we would say yes. Because I did that with Bonnie and she did that with Clyde. So she said she would. So the vet tech took Jinx. I guess Dawn said her goodbyes to her then too. And the vet tech walked to the back. Not a minute or two later, the vet tech walks out and says, Jinx just passed. She went out on her own. She did not get the shot to put her to sleep. She must have realized what was about to happen and decided that now was the time to release herself from the earthly plane. Join Star Clan, go to the, what is that? White stones, white sands. I think white sands. Whatever, kitty heaven, whatever you want to call it. So she went out on her own. And as the day progressed, it wasn't as hard. It was hard in the morning, but gradually acceptance and knowing that Jinx was free of pain and in a much better place now, was all I needed to keep going. And that was good. So the rest of this week, Dawn had a little rough time at work. She wore her glasses instead of her contacts because she was crying constantly as well. Noelle was a little affected, but not nearly as bad. I mean, she's almost 16 years old, but known her for almost 10 years. We'll get into that a little bit too. Noah, who I thought was really going to be distraught, seemed to have been suppressing it more, actually, and really hasn't brought it up this week. And I don't know if he had any moments or whatever. He did text us when he got home that, he was sad there was no kitty. I don't think he cried. He might have on Monday night when he went to bed, but I don't know if he actually did at school on Tuesday or when he learned she actually did pass away. And every day has seemed to have gotten more normal. Am I still sad? Yeah, but it's not a deep down destructive sadness that can sometimes happen. And sometimes, again, things can get repressed. Good examples. When my grandmother passed away, I was fine. She passed away on June 14th, which would have actually been Jinx's 10 years with us. And my mom and aunt worked on a funeral and eulogy and wake and all that stuff for the day before my birthday. And it was beautiful. It was lovely. Lots of friends and family and all that was there. And then on my birthday, I was walking because I was still living at home at that time. I was walking. I went to the Giant and got some groceries. I was walking home, and the bag that had a gallon of milk in it broke and exploded on the ground. And I just burst out crying. Went home. All upset. And then I was fine. So it took me a while to get emotional about my grandmother's passing. My grandfather's passing, he had been dying of Alzheimer's. So when he passed, it really wasn't too much of a shock and wasn't a gut punch. When my other grandmother passed away, again, not really a major gut punch. It's just the way it is, When Dawn's grandparents passed away, again, not a real gut punch for me. When my cousin John passed away, when I was doing the eulogy, it was a little bit of a gut punch. And dying the way he did when he didn't have to colors my view on COVIDiots, which makes me hate them even more. The fact that he could have still been alive today if they would have we had a competent person in office who knew how to take care of business. And we had people who were not afraid of little pieces of cloth over their mouth and getting vaccines. My cousin would still be alive, you sons of bitches, but we're not going to cover that right now. I had a friend with Snark Alex who passed away. I did a eulogy for her also. Again, not too hard of a gut punch, but still, when someone dies, it's not fun. So I'm just hoping that the suppression that my son is doing right now does not come out at some unknown, inopportune time. But if it does, it does. That's the way it is. So the house is empty. It feels really empty now. We haven't touched anything. We haven't removed her litter boxes. We haven't removed the food and water or her dishes or her scratching post or her toys. We haven't done any of that yet. We'll probably do it sometime this summer. I'm going to see if there's a local cat shelter up the road, if they will take the open bags of food. I would understand if they didn't, but they might. And also maybe Jinx's cat toys. Now, scratching post is scratched a bit, so that's not going to be useful for cats like that. But But let's talk. That's the last days of Jinx's life. It was she went out on her own, which is exactly what we wanted, and she's in a better place now, and she's in pain. So let's get back to what the eulogy actually does. The eulogy wake is for the survivors, really. It's to have them, move on from grief. And the grief never leaves you, but move on from it and celebrate the life of the person or pet who passed away. I remember when my grandmother died, my dad's side, not the one who died for my birthday, the other one. We had a wake, and we had a lot of my cousins came, and we were there for the viewing, and we were reminiscing about stuff. And I told some funny stories about grandma, things she said and did to me, most particularly when after that Christmas after Dawn and I got married, we saw her, and she's like, Dylan, you got fat. And I was like, oh, thanks, Grandma. And she's like, no, I meant that, married life is, doing wonders for you. You look well fed and blah, blah, blah. So that was a funny story to share like that. So the arrival of Jinx is a little bit different. We had just lost Bonnie, and we had taken a few months break from. We weren't going to get a new cat for a while, and we were we were about 3 months removed, I guess, from Bonnie passing. And one of Dawn's friends, Amy, called and said, I know you're not looking for another cat right now, but you're our last resort. And she explained the story. She says, there's a cat named Jinx. Her original owners had a baby, and they couldn't keep her, which is despicable to me, but I'm not one to judge. Jinx seemed to be happy with that family, and they were the ones that named her Jinx. They then gave Jinx to a family that already had like 5 or 6 other cats, and they named her, I forget what they named, but they changed her name from Jinx to something else, like Lulabelle or something like that. And poor Jinx, being the smallest one, was bullied mercilessly by these other kitties, so much so that she had to let them eat first before she could eat. And she was just getting bullied and just was not having a good time. And the family saw this and said, well, we can't keep her. We're just going to send her someplace to get destroyed. Again, kind of a dick move on my part, on their part. I think it's kind of a bad attitude to have about a living, breathing creature like a cat who was still young at that time. And Amy's like, can you please, take her? She's, only I guess she's like 2 or 3 years old at that point. She's been spayed and neutered, so we didn't have to do that. And she showed us pictures, and we said, okay, because we didn't want anything bad to happen to the cat. We went back and we found the original name was Jinx, and we liked that better than Lulabelle or whatever it was. So we went back to calling her Jinx, and Jinx was introduced to our house on June 14th, 2012, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's when it was. Don't quote me on that, though, but I'm pretty sure that's when it was. And as I said, we didn't exactly know how old she was when we got her, 2-3 years maybe. So she wasn't a kitten, but she also wasn't a older cat. So she still had a lot of life within her and stuff like that. So we get her into the house, and she has no idea what's going on. She's freaking out. She's running around the house. She didn't know these people. And she found a spot to hide in our family room. We have a sofa, and we have an end table that's opened up underneath. And we have a box we put our recycled papers in. She slid behind the box and hid in the corner, so she could still look out, but no one could. It would be really difficult for people to go out and grab her. So since she was freaked out, we decided to, not push it, let her come out on her own. I think we put food back there for her so she would still eat, but we didn't want to keep it back there because we wanted her to get out there. So we gave her a little bit here and there, and then we moved it out further so she'd have to come out and get it if she was hungry and thirsty. Eventually, a day or so, she started to explore the house. Now, at this time, Noah was about 3 years old. Noelle was about 6, I guess, when we got her. So they were still fairly little, and they were fascinated by the cat. But we made sure that they did not bother her too much and have her get used to the house. Now, to help her get used to the house and make her feel more comfortable, I would get up in the middle of the night because she would be running around, stuff like that, and I would play with her because she would let me. And I guess that sort of set the stage for what was to come later on down the line. But I did get up late at night and play with her a little bit, so she knew that she was loved and knew that we weren't going to do anything bad to her. Now, one of her little quirks, interesting little quirks she had that she always I always found interesting, was she was scarred by having to wait to eat her food, that when we put new food in her dish or new water in her dish, or we gave her some lunch meat from our lunches, she would wait. She would pause a few minutes, and then she'd go over and then she would eat, because that was what was ingrained in her. Now, we made the joke later on that the reason why she was doing that is because our ghost cat that we've had, that I've mentioned on the show numerous times, was the one that was eaten first. And Jinx wanted the ghost cat to eat first before she ate. But I think it was more of a psychological thing. And she had it all the way up to right before she died also. So it was something that was always there. So because of me getting up and playing with her, Dawn would always say that I was her favorite because she would curl up on my lap a lot, and she would let me hold her, and she would let me dance with her, and she would let me put her on her side so that hold her like a baby, so her belly was showing, and she wasn't too upset about that. And I think she only let me go down because I was going to go down, and I kissed her belly, and she probably didn't like it, but she never hissed at me. She never tried to bite me or scratch me. I sort of gave that look like, oh my God, what is he doing? Make him stop. But she still let me do that. We played a lot. I chased her, and she would jump out and attack me and stuff like that. And it was all in good fun. And also, when we were in bed or I was under covers or whatever, I was moving my hands or my feet or whatever, she would attack them like it was a creature underneath us, stuff like that. So I don't know when this actually started. It's been a few years, though. But there was a quirk that she would do to me during the summer, like kind of what it is now. It's 90-some degrees today, even though it's May 21st, now 22nd. We had the air conditioner on. And so it was cool downstairs, but because of the way the house is, it wouldn't get upstairs to the rooms upstairs. So it's kind of warm upstairs in the rooms upstairs. Now, it's a little bit comfortable. It isn't like deathly hot, but it's not cool like it is down in the basement and on the main level and stuff like that when we have the air conditioning on. So we have fans in all the rooms, and that was fine. Jinx would stay downstairs pretty much from about May till about September, October-ish, maybe even November sometimes, and just stay downstairs where it was cooler and not upstairs where it was warmer. But then in the September, October range till May, when we had the heat on, as the cold weather came in, heat rises, so the upstairs was warmer than the downstairs was. So she would head upstairs and sleep with us on our bed. And that's fine if you're going to sleep. Jinx would sleep for maybe an hour, if that. And she would get down and she would start eating plastic. She loved to eat plastic. Plastic wrapping, plastic bags I had my comics in, carrying plastic bags that we have. She would eat them, and I had them all over that room. She would also knock stuff over, grab things, go where she wasn't supposed to be in the middle of the night. So I would have to get up and take her downstairs. And then I'd come back upstairs and close the door and go to bed. She would come back upstairs, come up on the bed for a little bit, and then do the same thing again. So it would be like every hour on the hour, I would pick her up, take her downstairs, try to go back to sleep. She'd come back up, wake me up, and then I'd pick her up, take her downstairs again. So we did that constantly. And then if I closed the door so she couldn't come in, she would start meowing and scratching at the door. Now, I'm a light sleeper, so the scratching at the door made me not be able to sleep. And the meowing, I was afraid she was going to wake up the kids. So I suffered through that for a few years. And she was still doing it up to about a month or so ago, I guess, right before she started, I guess, feeling a little worse than she was. And then she would just sleep on our bed, really. She'd stay as a lump for the most part. And also when she wasn't running around being annoying, when she was on the bed, she was always on my side most of the time. So I had to sleep in awkward sort of ways to not disturb her. So that's that little interesting story. Whenever we were sick or didn't feel good or felt sad, she knew. I mean, you hear the stories. Dogs, cats, animals, they know when you're upset and they will hang out and protect you. And Jinx was no different. The biggest one I remember most of all was a few years ago when Dawn got hit by a car crossing a crosswalk in the middle of the snowstorm. I've told this story before. I'm not going to get into it right now because that's not really the point of it. The point of it is she was hurt badly, but not bad enough. We decided to see how she felt in the morning. We just wanted to get her back home, get her warm and safe. And then if things would get worse, then we would take her to the hospital and see what was going on. We had EMTs there. Doctors, they said she was okay to go home, or they recommended you might want to go get checked out at the hospital if you want to. But at that time, we didn't have anyone to watch the kids. The snow was just starting to fall, and it was a Sunday night when this happened. So Dawn and I made the decision we're just going to take her home, and I'll take Monday off, and we will see how she is. Because we pretty much knew that the kids were probably going to be off school, and that they could stay by themselves for a little while, but not at night. You don't want them to be by themselves at night while we were at the hospital at the ER for God knows how long that was going to be. At least we knew that we'd only be the doctors for a little bit, and they'd only be by themselves for a little bit. And sure enough, schools were closed, so the kids were staying home. The roads weren't too bad, so we were okay, and I was staying home anyway. But regardless, that night, so I got her back and helped her, get dressed and get ready for bed. And she got into bed, and she was suffering from, I can't remember what the word of it. It's, she was shaking violently, trauma. She was suffering some trauma. She was shaking badly, and she just had suffered trauma. I mean, she was hit by a freaking car, could have died, that type of thing. Luckily, the car wasn't going that fast and clipped her real quick. So Jinx, of course, being winter, she was upstairs, but she knew something was different this time. So instead of staying with me, she crawled up onto Dawn's stomach and curled up on there to sort of keep her calm. And it helped. It helped a lot. And she did not get up and be bothersome. She stayed on Dawn pretty much the whole night because we had to elevate her foot so she couldn't move around too much. So Jinx was on point on top of Dawn's stomach, curled up there, just trying to help take the pain away. She liked to steal my seat. We would sit on the sofa. In the evening, she was mommy's girl. Dawn, after the kids were in bed, Dawn and I would sit on our sofa, reading, watching TV, playing on our phones, whatever. And Jinx would jump up and curl up, usually on Dawn's lap, or sometimes in between us because it would go. The sofa was big enough that we had our own little space, and there was space in between us. And then sometimes she'd sit on me, but not that much during the night. She was always right by mom, either on her lap or next to her on the sofa. But there were times where, I would get up to go to the bathroom or get something to drink or eat, and she would be over on Dawn's side. And when I came back, she was curled up in my seat. So I couldn't sit there anymore. So she did that a lot. Early on, I like to watch football, and Jinx, when someone is at rest sitting on the sofa, she likes to be around that person on the lap, be near them, whatever. So she would sit with me a lot of times during football games. She would usually sit on the other side of the sofa or on the floor or whatever, but she'd be there with me during football games. I remember one time I called her, I need Lucky Kitty, because the Ravens were losing a game once, and I picked her up, said, I need Lucky Kitty. So I picked her up, put her on my lap, and she stayed in my lap, and the Ravens ended up winning the game. So I did that periodically over a few years, and it worked most of the time, but sometimes it didn't work. But, it worked more so she was able to keep the moniker of Lucky Kitty. Now, because she was watching football with me, I wanted her to have a favorite football team. And I wanted to be a cat type. And, of course, with the Ravens playing the Bengals all the time in Cincinnati, I made her a Bengals fan. So she was able to, and she watched. She was always in there when the Bengals played. And she watched the Super Bowl with us when the Bengals were in it, even though they lost. But I found it always funny that that I called her a Bengals fan. So, yeah, she was a really good mouser. We had a period of time here, 3 or 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, where we had a mouse problem. I'm not exactly sure how it was, but we saw them in the house. I think they were getting in through one of the holes or whatever. And we saw them, running around here and there, and it freaked us out a little bit, obviously. But there would be times where we'd wake up in the morning and we'd come downstairs, there'd be a dead mouse on the carpet, because Jinx was a good mouser. She caught the mouse and usually didn't kill it, but close enough to put it in pain where she wasn't going to live, so we would have to put out its misery. Or sometimes she would kill it, as every good cat should. She was a really good mouser. Was not expecting that, because I never thought she'd be able to prove it, because we never really had any mouse, and we haven't had a mouse problem, knock on wood, for a really long time now. So hopefully we won't have another one now. So yeah, she also liked to hunt bugs also, because we have our deck doesn't have a screen. It's just a door that leads out to the deck. So if I take the trash out, recyclables, we came in off the deck, whatever, and it was usually during the summer, there's a light out there. Bugs would notoriously come in all the time. Mosquitoes, little potato bugs, ladybugs, all kinds of bugs, flies. They would fly all over there. And Jinx would be on point with that also. She would get down there. She'd get in her crouch mode. She'd smack it down, and she'd go after them. And she got them a lot. She got them a lot. I also helped her sometimes knocking them down to in front of her, and then she finished them off. That type of stuff. We did teamwork with that. So that was good too. Let's see. Anything else here? I don't remember. She appeared on the show a number of times. There's one time I did a show once, she sat on my lap for the whole time. That was kind of funny to do that. She still could startle me every once in a while when I was doing the show, and I'd look over and there's this thing looking at me or rubbing up against my legs, whatever. She liked to go outside, even though we didn't want her to be an outdoor cat. We wanted her to stay inside, but we let her go outside when she wanted to. Granted that she stayed within her yard. If she ventured too far into the neighbor's yard, either to the left of us or the right of us, I would pick her up and bring her back in, tell her she can't do that. And then after a little while, she'd want to go back out again. I said, okay, you're going to stay in our yard. And she usually did. Her favorite spot was, we have a bay window, and there's a garden underneath the bay window, and then there's like a space that goes back to the foundation of our house. There's a bit of a dirt space back area right there. She liked to curl up in that area because she was undercover, and we usually had weeds or flowers in our garden because we're not very good gardeners. So she would be able to just view everything from her vantage point, and people did not know she was there. Animals did not know she was there. Birds, whatever, they did not know she was there. And she just would be. And she would sit out there for hours. We had to keep checking on her periodically. And then when it got to a point where, it's time for her to get in, it's getting late. She's been out there for 4 or 5 hours. It's been really, really hot, whatever. She needs to get in, and she wasn't coming in. I have to get the broom, and I'd come out and I'd start brushing the broom towards her, and she would run back in. Sometimes when we called her, she would come in and jump in on her own. If she went outside for a little bit, she would knock on the door and look up at the door if she wanted to come back in. Sometimes she did that immediately. Sometimes she didn't. Sometimes she was afraid of the kids and the other people that saw her. She was pretty good at jumping from our stoop to the neighbor's stoop. She was a pretty good athletic kitty when it comes to that. She liked other people. Whenever we were visited by family, she didn't go into hiding and didn't attack anybody. She went around the room, curled up next to them. I have pictures of her next to my father-in-law, Christmas time, stuff like that. Speaking of Christmas, we had a rug mat underneath our fake Christmas tree. Jinx likes to, before the presents got put there by Santa, Jinx would curl up underneath the Christmas tree on that rug and stay there for a while, sometimes sleeping there overnight sometimes. She liked that little, again, like a little hiding spot, we could see her, but she still felt like, she was protected enough that nothing could get her. And she was still able to see everything without being bothered too much because it was hard to try to get to her. She liked to get onto our kitchen table when she wasn't supposed to, but she did periodically. We had a recyclable bin, and one day it was out in the rain, so it was soaking wet when I went to get it. And I didn't want to put the wet paper recycle bin that we have in the kitchen on our floor. So I got an old towel and put on there and kept the recycle bin and kept it there, from that point on. And when I would take recyclables out, even when it wasn't raining, Jinx would always curl up on that towel where the recycle bin was sometimes as well. She liked her catnip. Noah bought her a bunch of catnip mice last Christmas, and she went crazy for them last Christmas. And Noah kept one by her when she was passing on the sofa. And we have it. The vet took Jinx's body and is going to take it to the crematorium, and they'll send us her ashes like we did with Bonnie and Clyde. So we're going to stack them up there right now. Her favorite mouse is the placekeeper for Jinx's cremation thing. Any other little stories I can think of with Jinx? She had a scratching post that Noelle got her that she used not only for scratching posts, but she also liked to curl up on it like a chair. She would sit on our floor chairs that we had, these nice soft, comfy floor chair things. She would sit on them. She had a habit of, when it was time for me to go upstairs to bed, she would jump off of the sofa and look at me like, time for you to go, and urge me into the kitchen. And then she wouldn't follow me upstairs. She just urged me into the kitchen, and she'd go eat or drink something. And then I'd go upstairs to go to bed. Like she knew it was my bedtime. I don't know. There's probably a bunch of other stories I have, but those are the ones that stick out to me most of all. She was always protective of her kids. She liked to sometimes curled underneath Noah's bed. Always let him get really in her face and love her, even though it annoyed her sometimes. Would periodically sometimes curl up on Noelle's bed. So yeah. She was a good girl, and everybody loved her. honestly, I really can't think of too much more because she was there every day from June 14th, 2012 to May 17th, 2022. There were times where she was left alone in the house. We were on vacation. We had people checking on her, making sure she was okay. And she let us know she was angry with us sometimes. One time she pooped all over the floor. Her litter boxes were right there because she was angry with us for leaving her. She was always sort of distant and cold to us the day we got back from vacation, but then she became very loving right after that. So she let us know, I'm mad at you, but says, well, now it's time for cuddles again. She was a good lap cat. She was a good cat. Never barely heard her hiss. She rarely attacked anybody. And even when she did, they deserved it. She put up with a lot. She had a big floofy tail. I like to stroke that and just whoop. And she didn't like that too much. And there were a few times she told me, she smacked me, but she never clawed me. It's always hard when you lose a pet because they are like a member of the family. They are. And it's just not easy. Are we going to get another cat? No, we really don't foresee that. Jinx had a lot of issues when it came to bathroom. We had her litter box down here for the longest time. She used it a lot, but then she just stopped using it. And we kept it, mostly clean most of the time. There are times we might not have cleaned it for a week or whatever, but we would clean it eventually. And eventually she would just start going to the bathroom wherever, particularly upstairs. So then we moved the litter boxes upstairs, which kept us from entertaining for the last few years. And, we had them on towels, stuff like that, but she still scratched all the litter out. She, peed on those things as well. She didn't quite always pee in the litter boxes. She pooped a lot, still outside the box. When she was very fluffy, furry kitty, she had a lot of poop stuck on her butt. And she stank for periods of time because she had this poop on her butt. I guess we could have tried to clean it, but we were always afraid of putting her in the bathtub because we know how much she hated that. And yeah, I'm sure there's you always feel guilty about this. I'm sure there are things that maybe we could have done better to take care of her, like get more regular vet visits and maybe groom her a little bit better. But we never mistreated her, and we loved her immensely. And she seemed to be fine most of the time. And if she wasn't herself, it would be a day or so later and she'd be back to her normal self. So just like people, she healed herself. I don't think I really have anything else more to add. It's been a hard week. And it's going to be a hard year, probably the rest of the year without her. But as I said, every day seems to get better. We get more used to stuff, and we're eventually going to remove all her stuff. Dawn wants to, tear up the carpet. She's always wanted to do this for years in the living room and get hardwood floors. So now, once we do that, we can clean the area around the litter boxes to get someone to come in here, tear up the carpet, but lay down the hardwood floor like she wants. And that'll be that. Are we going to get another animal? I don't think so. Never say never, though. But at this point, we're going to try to step away for a while. The kids are entering some hard times. Noah still hasn't hit puberty yet, but he's going to be hitting it probably sometime this summer. Probably he'll be 13 in August. Noelle's going to be turning 16 in December. They're getting older. If we got another cat, we generally keep them for 10 plus years. All the cats we've had at least double digits. And by the time, that cat passes on, the kids will be gone and out the door. It's hard. But it's not as hard as it was. The first day right after is really the hardest. First time after is the hardest. After the death. But it gets better, much like grieving does. And we'll have her memories. I've set up an Instagram account of all Jinx's pictures. I want to thank everybody who responded to Twitter and Facebook and Instagram for the most part, also pages as well, where we announced her passing with your love and support and prayers. We do appreciate that. The house seems empty. But we know Jinx is in a better place. She's not in pain. And things are going to get better for her. We're going to be fine. And it wouldn't surprise me if she's still going to be keeping an eye on us, much like how Bonnie had for the longest time after she passed away. Haven't seen Ghost Cat in a really long time, so I'm wondering if she eventually just decided to move on because she realized we were okay. But are we going to have another Ghost Cat in the form of Jinx? Jinx was one of the first people to see Ghost Cat. She verified that we weren't crazy. When the three of us, Dawn, Jinx, and I, were sitting on the sofa and we heard the tinkling in our food dish, we all heard it. And Jinx included. She looked over there too. And we got down and looked around. There's nothing there. When I heard something going through the trash in our bedroom, I thought this is the middle of the night. I thought it was Jinx, but she was in one of her rare spots when she was sleeping on Dawn's side. She was staring in the direction of the trash can as well as I was. So I got up and turned on the light, and there was nothing there. That's where the history of Ghost Cat came from. But Jinx was aware of it also because she saw it, much like we did. And she probably actually saw it because animals have a better sense of things like that. So will we see a potential Jinx Ghost Cat here? Part of me kind of doesn't want to because I don't want her to feel like she has to keep an eye on us. She should be enjoying her time in Kitty Heaven or wherever. Star Clan, whatever you want to call it. But the other half of me wants her to make her presence felt so that we know that she's still keeping an eye on us and that she knows that she was loved. Thank you for letting me get this off of my chest and take a 5-minute break here. And I'll be back with a brand new episode of Dylan Knows, episode 446. Thank you for watching. If this is your first time ever watching Dylan Knows, this is episode 445. So there's been a ton of episodes I've done. If you want to see what my show is usually like, absolutely come back and watch this one. We love you to death, Jinx. We will miss you, but we know you're in a better place, and we know that in Star Clan you are probably keeping an eye on us as well. We love you.